Buying a single-family home today seems pretty crazy for most folks. Like, seriously, who has the massive upfront cash needed for a house? And then you get tied down to it for life, mostly shelling out for interest on a mortgage, property taxes, not to mention ongoing maintenance costs. But here's the kicker. While that dream seems out of reach for many, one company is swooping in to grab it up: your future. By 2025, the American dream is being bought and sold by a company most of us have never heard of: Blackstone. Sounds like a name you'd hear in a fairy tale, right? But this is no fantasy. It's the new reality of housing in America. While you're busy working, saving, and dreaming about that perfect home, Blackstone is out there snapping up whole neighborhoods, cities, and, yeah, basically your future. They're not just acquiring houses, they're buying up America, and hardly anyone seems to be talking about it. Now, let's make sure you're not the odd one out in future conversations. If you're chatting at a dinner party, trust me, you don't want to confuse Blackstone with other companies. If you do, you might end up looking a bit silly if someone knows the ins and outs of this stuff. I'm here to help you get clued in. So, grab a seat and get ready to learn how and when Blackstone quietly bought up a huge chunk of America, all while most people were totally oblivious. It's kind of funny how this topic barely gets any attention. People would rather chat about rising egg or bread prices when one of the biggest expenses of our lives is in serious jeopardy. Welcome to the housing crisis. I'm here to give you the lowdown. Let's dive right in. First up, let's talk about the Phoenix phenomenon. Remember Phoenix, Arizona? It used to be the go-to spot for retirees looking for some sun and young families wanting a budget-friendly start. But by 2025, things are changing in these sunny suburbs. If you take a drive through places like Mville or down Watuki, what do you see? Rows upon rows of cookie-cutter homes, perfectly manicured lawns, American flags fluttering in the breeze. Looks pretty normal, right? Well, not quite. Behind those walls, you won't find family dinners or kids marking their height on door frames. It's hard to believe, but more and more houses are being bought up by massive corporate landlords these days. Take Blackstone's Invitation Homes, for example. They own a whopping 32,000 single-family homes just in the Phoenix metro area. That's not just a neighborhood, it's practically an empire. Since 2012, Blackstone has dumped over $150 billion into real estate. That's billions, not just millions. Meanwhile, the typical American family is busting their tails trying to save up for a $20,000 down payment. But here's the kicker: Blackstone spends that every 12 seconds. Can you imagine? In Phoenix, home prices have shot up 140% since they started buying here. Coincidence? I think not. The median home price now sits at around $450,000, which is just wild. For a family making $75,000 a year, affording a home is not just tough, it's practically impossible. Take Jennifer Martinez, for instance. She spent 15 years saving, working double shifts, skipping vacations, and cutting coupons. Finally, she had her down payment ready, but every house she bid on was snatched up before she could even blink, thanks to cash offers from corporate buyers, often over the asking price and with no inspections. Now let's chat about the Southeast, the so-called New South, where folks are fleeing high prices in California to seek a better life. Cities like Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville, and Raleigh were supposed to be havens of affordability. But if you take a drive through suburban Atlanta today, it's a different story. In places like Peachtree Corners and Alpharetta, you'll notice that every third house has the same property management sign. They've essentially bought entire subdivisions at foreclosure auctions, stocking up on homes like they're at Costco, except it's the American dream they're hoarding. Blackstone owns 28,000 units across the Southeast. That's not just investing, that's more like colonizing. The numbers paint a pretty scary picture. In areas where Blackstone owns more than 3% of the homes, rents have skyrocketed 47% faster than in neighboring areas. It's not just regular increases, it's skyrocketing beyond what people's incomes can handle. For instance, in Tampa Bay, Blackstone controls about 6% of all rental homes. Imagine that. One company dictating how much families have to pay for a roof over their heads. In Charlotte, teachers can't even afford to live where they teach. And nurses are commuting for hours because the nearby housing is all corporate owned and priced out of their reach. It's heartbreaking. The very people building communities can't afford to live in them. A firefighter, Mike Thompson, put it best when he said, "I save homes I'll never afford." And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The warehouse wars are next. But let's dive into that later. You know, Blackstone has really made a name for itself by becoming the biggest owner of warehouses in the whole of America. We're talking about a staggering 1.2 billion square feet. Can you even imagine that? Every time you get an Amazon package or a Walmart delivery, there's a pretty good chance it passed through a Blackstone warehouse. They're not just in the home ownership game, they've got their hands in the supply chain too. During the pandemic, when online shopping exploded, Blackstone's warehouse empire raked in the dough. They snapped up $31 billion worth of warehouse properties in just 3 years. While countless small businesses were closing up shop, Blackstone was busy buying up their distribution centers. Take the Inland Empire in California, for example. It used to be all orchards and open land, but now it's essentially the warehouse capital of America, with Blackstone sitting on top of 300 warehouses that control the movement of goods for 40 million Californians. But there's a darker side to this. These warehouses don't just store goods, they end up reshaping entire communities. Property taxes shoot up, air quality takes a nosedive, traffic turns into a mess, and the jobs created? They're mostly minimum wage with no benefits and little future. Blackstone's laughing all the way to the bank while everyone else suffers. They effectively control where you live and where your stuff is kept. Talk about being a middleman in our lives. Now, think apartments are safe from this corporate takeover? Nope, not at all. Blackstone owns a whopping 300,000 apartment units. That's like entire cities filled with renters pouring their money into one giant corporate machine. In Los Angeles, they own huge complexes in places like Koreatown, Hollywood, and downtown. Families, young professionals, and seniors all find themselves writing checks to Blackstone. Their game plan is pretty straightforward. Buy a building, renovate it just a bit, jack up the rent by 30 to 50%, and push out the long-term tenants. Then they just do it all over again. In New York, for instance, Blackstone's Stuyvesant Town used to provide affordable housing for middle-class folks like teachers, firefighters, and nurses. Now, studios there start at a whopping $3,800, while the median salary in NYC is about $67,000. You do the math. It doesn't really add up, does it? Take Maria Rodriguez, who lived in her Blackstone-owned LA apartment for 12 years. She raised 2 kids there and built a solid community, but then she got hit with a notice about a rent hike of $800 a month. No chance to negotiate, no compassion. It was either move or pay up, and so she ended up living in her car. This isn't just a case of gentrification, it's more like algorithmic displacement. Blackstone actually uses AI to figure out the maximum rent every building can charge, not what's fair or sustainable, but what's the highest they can extract. And let's not forget about the hotel situation, where they're also targeting your vacations and business trips. Hey there, let's chat about something that's pretty eye-opening. Did you know that Blackstone has become one of the biggest hotel owners out there? That's right, they now own a ton of well-known names like Hilton, Motel 6, and Extended Stay. It's wild to think they've racked up a massive $40 billion in hotel purchases since 2020. While the hospitality scene was struggling during COVID, Blackstone was out there snapping up distressed properties for a fraction of their worth. Think places like the Cosmopolitan in Vegas and the Waldorf Astoria, major symbols of American luxury, now reduced to just entries in their spreadsheet. But here's the catch. When private equity firms like Blackstone own hotels, the quality of service can take a hit. You might find that staff are cut, wages don't go up, and maintenance gets delayed. So your dream getaway could end up costing you top dollar for not so great service because the shareholders' interests come first. What's worse, these hotels often snag tax breaks that are actually meant for small businesses. For example, Blackstone's hotels got millions in PPP loans during COVID, money that was supposed to help local mom and pop motels, but went to a company that's worth a staggering $1 trillion. So you're potentially paying $400 a night for a room that would have only cost $150 before. Now let's move on to another twist. Think about where you work. If you're in places like downtown Manhattan, Chicago's Loop, or San Francisco's financial district, there's a good chance that building you're entering is owned by Blackstone. They've scooped up $300 billion in commercial real estate. the largest portfolio ever. That means owning these office spaces gives them clout over where companies set up shop and what they pay. Ever wonder who's behind the scenes when Amazon wanted a new headquarters, seeking tax breaks from cities, or who decides how much Google pays for space? That's right, it's Blackstone pulling the strings there. They even bought the Willis Tower in Chicago, once known as the Sears Tower and a true symbol of American business, for $1.3 billion. dollars. The crazy part? The tax breaks they negotiated for that deal, worth about $270 million. dollars. And guess what? That's your tax money helping to fund their empire. So, if you're enjoying this eye-opening info, think about subscribing. I put a lot of time into these topics. If you've got any thoughts or want to see something specific next, please leave a comment and hit that like button so more folks can check this out. It's pretty wild how things have shifted with the whole working from home trend, right? You'd think this would hurt office values, but Blackstone is actually betting against the odds. They're scooping up rundown office spaces for cheap, just waiting for companies to pull workers back into the office. They're really playing both sides of that commute game. Let's talk about something else. Mobile homes. You might think Blackstone is just going after the middle class, but that's not the case at all. They're targeting everyone, especially with mobile home parks. These are often the last bit of affordable housing in America, where working families, seniors, and veterans can find a roof over their heads. Believe it or not, Blackstone owns 70,000 mobile home lots. And here's the kicker, even if you own your mobile home, they own the land underneath it. Moving a mobile home can cost over $10,000 and often isn't even an option. So when Blackstone raises the lot rent, you're pretty much stuck. You either pay up or just walk away from your home that you thought was yours. In Florida, people are feeling this hard. Lot rents in Blackstone-owned parks have doubled. Imagine seniors living on Social Security seeing their $400 rent jump to $800. Veterans are left making tough choices between medications and having a place to live. This isn't just bad economics, it feels like plain exploitation. Take Bob Wilson, a 73-year-old Navy veteran who's lived in his mobile home for 2 decades. He owned it outright and was proud of it until Blackstone bought the park. Just like that, his rent shot up from $350 to $900 in 3 years. With only $1,400 a month from Social Security, he's devastated. "I fought for this country," he says. "Now I can't afford to live in it." Now, on to another point. Let's shine a light on data centers. They're essential for our internet, the cloud, and everything digital in our lives, right? Well, guess who owns a ton of them? That's right, Blackstone. They have a war chest of $100 billion for owning the infrastructure of our digital age. Northern Virginia has become the data center capital of the world, with 70% of global internet traffic passing through there. Blackstone is grabbing everything they can. But here's the thing, data centers aren't just empty buildings. They consume a ton of power. One Blackstone data center uses as much electricity as 50,000 homes. The stress on the power grid is huge, driving up your electricity bills while their profit margins go through the roof. And to top it all off, they're getting massive tax incentives. Loudoun County, Virginia, handed Blackstone $100 million in tax breaks for buildings that employ around 50 people. Meanwhile, our schools are crying out for funding, and roads are in need of repair. But somehow Blackstone gets all the subsidies. So every time you stream a Netflix show, hop on a Zoom call, or upload a photo, just know this trend is growing. It's wild to think how Blackstone isn't just a company that owns homes, they've also got a grip on student housing. They've poured a whopping $20 billion into acquiring places where your kids might live while they go to college. So while families are stretching their budgets for education, Blackstone's making money on both sides. You go to big schools like USC, UCLA, or Ohio State, and chances are Blackstone has major student housing complexes right nearby, charging around $1,500 a month for a shared room. Sure, the buildings look fancy, but they don't maintain them well at all. A real catch-22. Students need places to stay, and financial aid often covers the rent, so parents are co-signing leases thinking it's guaranteed income for Blackstone. It's a pretty genius but predatory model, but let's be real, it's heartbreaking too. Many of these parents are struggling to afford homes in their neighborhoods because Blackstone has scooped those up as well, so they're basically paying Blackstone twice, once for their own rent and once for their kids' dorm. Take Sarah Chen, for example. She's a single mom working 3 jobs, saving every penny for her daughter's education. Her daughter got into Berkeley, which is amazing, right? But guess what? The campus housing is owned by, you guessed it, Blackstone, and it's $2,000 a month for a shared room. That's basically all of Sarah's second job just to cover the rent. Sarah always says she wanted to give her daughter opportunities she never had, but even that chance feels like it belongs to someone else. Now, here's the kicker, the part that should really worry you. Blackstone isn't just amassing properties, they're also buying political influence. Over the last 5 years, they've spent $50 million on lobbying efforts. While you're pouring your heart into letters to your congressman, they're writing checks that shape legislation. They lobby against tenant protections, rent control, and affordable housing requirements, just the kind of policies that could truly help regular folks like you and me. Take a look at their CEO, Steven Schwartzman. He's got a personal fortune of $40 billion, which means he makes what the average American earns in a year in just 1 hour. He's got a $100 million penthouse in Manhattan and homes in places like the Hamptons and Palm Beach. At the same time, people renting from his company are struggling, with 40% of them spending more than half their income on rent. Imagine that, half of everything they earn going straight to Blackstone. And here's the darkest twist. They're even using your own money against you. Those pension funds you think are working for teachers and regular folks, a lot of them are investing in Blackstone. You know, it's pretty wild how the situation's unfolding, especially with Blackstone buying up so much. Think about this. Firefighters, public employees, and regular folks like us. Our retirement savings are actually helping to buy houses that we can't even afford ourselves. If you've got a 401k, it's likely you've got Blackstone funds in there. So, in a way, you're literally funding your own displacement. And guess who's backing them up? The government. For years, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates low, which meant Blackstone got to borrow money super cheap to snatch up properties across America. While you were scrambling just to qualify for one mortgage, they were raking in billions at almost zero interest rates. Then when COVID hit, who got the bailouts? It wasn't homeowners struggling to keep their houses or renters facing eviction. No, it was Blackstone's commercial properties that snagged federal aid. Your tax dollars were used to protect their empire while you were busy worrying about making rent. This situation isn't just a market anymore. It feels more like a monopoly. What we're witnessing isn't true capitalism. It's more like corporate feudalism. Right now, you're not seen as a citizen. You're just a tenant in this new version of America owned by Blackstone. The American dream hasn't vanished. It's just been taken over, reorganized, and turned into something for profit. If we don't wake up and demand better, the next generation might not even know what it was like to own a piece of this country because Blackstone will have it all. Have you noticed anything like this in your neighborhood? Corporate buyers outbidding families? Investors flipping homes into rentals? I want to hear your story. Your experience matters, and so does your dream. If enough of us raise our voices, we might just reclaim what was meant to be ours, the American dream, before it slips away completely and you find yourself just another tenant in what used to be your home.